everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is MTG Ghoul Dude, and today we're going to be covering something that not a lot of people I feel like cover enough, and that's changelings. Creatures with the changeling ability, because there are a lot of archetype or type of creature decks that don't have a fully fleshed out. They don't have everything they need. So I wanted to shed some light on some of the ones that we might know about and some that we might not know about. Because, there are some tribes like Wraiths that recently came out in the Lord of the Rings set, or excuse me, just your other like Shades, stuff like that do actually need some help when it comes to, filling out for those decks. So we're gonna start off in Lorwyn when we first see them in 2007 Lorwyn. Yep, I've already done set, the different things of the set. So let's go on ahead and get into these changelings. Avian Changeling for 2 and a white. It's a 2/2 shapeshifter. It has flying. Changeling Hero for 4 and a white. It has champion a creature, and what champion does is it basically remove a creature from the game, kind of like exile it, and whenever this creature leaves play, you return it to play. But it is a 4/4 with lifelink. Mirror Entity, probably one of the best known changelings, unless you're like really into niche deck building. But for 2 and a white, it's a 1/1, and you have the ability to tap X, and creatures you control become XX and gain all creature types until end of turn. So it makes them all changelings. But most of the recent uses for Mirror Entity are in Atla Palani decks, where you just turn all your creatures into 0/0 eggs and just make all the different make all those sugars. Amoeboid Changeling for 1 and a blue. It's a 1/1. It has the ability to tap and target creature gains all creature types until end of turn, or tap and target creature loses all creature types until end of turn, which could be useful in dissuading a deck that you're facing. Like, say you're going to go up against zombies, you could use that and be like, well, now this is not a zombie anymore, have fun. Turtleshell Changeling for 3 and a blue is a 1/4, and you have the ability to pay a colorless and a blue and switch its power and toughness. That's one that you don't see very often. Most of the time you see them on spells or turtles. I've seen a couple turtles that do that. Carrick's the Crab does it too. Shapeshifters for 1 and a blue. It is a 1/1, and for 2 and a blue, target shapeshifter becomes a copy of target creature until your next turn. So if you're playing a deck that utilizes a specific creature, you can turn it into that creature. This also works in like a deck like Orvar, where like, alright, well, you're about to kill this, so I need to change Shapeshare into that thing so I can save it and still have something to copy, which is still pretty neat. I wonder if it would still gain that ability, or does it lose that ability when it changes? I would probably need some Oracle text for that, but that's still pretty cool. Skeletal Changeling for 1 and a black. It has 1 and a black regenerate. It's pretty cool. It's a 1/1. I don't like the art. The art's kind of creepy. Like, it looks like it's wearing boots, but it's growing a tail at the same time. Then the face is really strange. Ghostly Changeling. See, this is one of the ones that I myself have a lot of experience with, because for 2 and a black, it's a 2/2, and it has what I would call the Shade ability, which the Shade ability is for any amount of mana, mostly 2 some colorless and a black, you can give it a buff for a +1 or a +2, which this did really well in the shape deck. Cairn Wanderer. This is the one where it comes to where it changes what a shapeshifter changeling usually is about. So for 4 and a black, it's a 4/4, so it's kind of decently costed. As long as a creature card with flying is in your graveyard, it has flying. Same is true for fear, first strike, double strike, 2 death touch, haste. I was about to say death paste. Woohoo! Landwalk, lifelink, protection, reach, trample, shroud, and vigilance. So if you have any of those abilities, it now has those abilities. Now, I would imagine if that is on the resolution of, or maybe that's a static, you know, as long as you have those creatures that are static, it's a static ability. Firebelly Changeling for 1 and a red. It's a 1/1, and it also has like a fire breathing ability that's known to dragons, but you can only do it twice in a turn. Changeling Berserker for 3 and a red. It's a 5/3 with haste, and it has champion. And I love how some of the art depicts, you know, what that it's trying to be like, because in this one it's like trying to be an ashling. I think that's what they're called. Woodland Changeling, and you can see this one right here is trying to be an elf because of the long ears and everything. For 1 and a black, 1 and a green, it's a 2/2, and that's all it is. It's a generic 2/2, which it could be an elf. Could be easily be an elf. Changeling Titan for 4 and a green. It's a champion. The champion a creature. That's a 7/7. That's pretty good. You know, for 5, that's 7/7. Ooh, that's not bad for. That's really good for green. And then we move into Morningtide, which came and brought us some more in 2008. Starting with Changeling Sentinel for 3 and a white. It's a 3/2 with vigilance. Moth Dust Changeling for a single blue. It's a 1/1, and it has the ability to tap an untapped creature you control. It gains flying. This is one of the ones where it's like it benefits off of it itself having other creatures around it, not just being in the deck with the creatures. Moonglow Changeling for 2 and a black. It's a 2/2, and it gains death touch until end of turn. That art is way out there. Warspike Changeling for 3 and a red. It's a 3/3, and it has the ability for 1 red, you can give it first strike. Taurean Mauler. What can be said about this card that hasn't already been said about it already? It is probably one of the most well-known changelings out there. Even though a lot of people don't even care that it's a changeling, it's just a good creature. Because for 2 and a red, it's a 2/2, and whenever an opponent plays a spell, just any spell, you may put a counter on him. Now, in my experience with this creature, in the 8+ people pods that I'll be in sometimes, by the time this is coming back to the controller's turn, if it's not dealt with, they now have a 12/12+ sometimes on the table, ready to just swing and have at whoever. Game Trail Changeling for 3 and 2 green. It's 4/4 with trample. That's pretty neat art for that changeling. It's pretty cool. Then we have Chameleon Colossus for 2 and 2 green. It's a 4/4 with protection from black. But it doesn't stop there. It has the ability to pay 2 colorless and 2 green, and it gets +X/+X to end of turn, where X is its power. So you can consistently keep buffing it up. By 4 every time, you know. Well, 4 turns into 8, 8 turns into 16, and so on and so on. Then we move into Modern Horizons #1. in 2019. And what did that one bring us? The granddaddy of all changelings, Morphon the Boundless. Because for 7 mana, that's a 6/6, it enters the battlefield, you can choose a creature type. If you wanted to be flavorful, you could just play all Shapeshifters. There is about 35 Shapeshifters just in this video. Just saying. Spells of the chosen type cost Wooburg less to cast. So if they're a single blue, they're free. This effect reduces only the amount of color mana you pay. Other creatures you control of the chosen type get +1/+1. It's pretty cool. It's an anthem. I mean, it's an expensive anthem, but it's still an anthem. Imposter of the Sixth Pride. For 1 and a white, it's a 3/1 with Changeling. You know, looking at this art, I kind of wonder where it's drawn its influence from, because it seems to me like in the middle where that sword is, it's kind of losing it, kind of, sort of. I don't know. It's still a wonderful art on this card. Irregular Cohort. So for 2 and 2 white, it's a 2/2, and when it enters, you create a 2/2 colorless shapeshifter creature token with Changeling. I prefer to use this in a deck like Giada. I have this in my Giada deck where it makes 2 bodies for 4 mana. But by the time you get to this 4 mana, usually you have maybe 2 or 3 other angels on the battlefield. So this just becomes like a 6/6 and a 7/7 by the time it's all said and done and they're on the ground. Valiant Changeling for 5 and 2 white. It's a 3/3, and this spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature type among creatures you control. This effect can't reduce the amount of mana of the spell by more than 5. So really, you can make it free if you have 4 other changelings or 5 other changelings. It'd just be 2 white, which is still pretty cool though. And it has double strike, so I mean, a 3/3 with double strike for 2 if you play it smart. Changeling Outcast. Oh, sorry. For 1 black, it's a 1/1. It can't be blocked and can't block itself. So I prefer to use this in zombie decks because it just looks like a zombie. Or any black deck that needs that support for that particular type of creature. So, you know, I like it. The can't block is kind of annoying, but you know, it is what it is. You get what you pay for, kind of sort of thing. Venomous Changeling for 2 and a black. It's a 1/3 with Death Touch. Grave Shifter. Now I like this art a lot because it tells a lot about where they went with the Changeling ability and how this one has been affected. Because if you notice from the time of Modern Horizons to Morningtide and Morrowind, they changed the color of how shapeshifters work. Because now this one is purple and they used to be like teal, dark teal blue, kind of, sort of. But this has a grave, what is the name of it? I can't remember. But when this one enters the battlefield, it does the same thing as the zombie does. It returns target creature card from your graveyard to your hand, and it's a 2/2. Oh, I wish I could remember what its name is. Anyways, on to the next one. Webweaver Changeling for 3 and 2 green. It's a 3/5 with reach. And whenever it enters the battlefield, if there are 3 or more creature cards in your graveyard, you gain 5 life. I feel like regardless of what it needs to be, they're only going to put it in the decks. And people only put them in decks because they look like, you know, what they look like. Because this looks like a spider. So they'll put it in a spider deck. This one right here looks like a human. So they're going to put it in the human deck. This one right here is going to be a scorpion. So it's going to go in a scorpion deck. Or a death touch deck. This looks like a zombie or a spirit, so it's going to go in that deck, and so on and so on. That's just my personal opinion. Unsettled Mariner. I think this is our first multicolored shapeshifter with Changeling. Because for 1 white and a blue, it's a 2/2, and whenever you or a permanent you control becomes the target of a spell or an ability, an opponent controls, counter that spell unless its controller pays 1. I feel like this would be really good if you could find a way to like make a bunch of them. But nevertheless, this would be really cool, like, in a deck. I feel like all these changelings are underestimated and undervalued because of their abilities and just what they are. But I mean, I feel like as we progress on, they'll get better with the game. Just like Universal Automaton. Because for just one mana, it's a 1/1 with Changeling. But it's an artifact creature, so it can do some damage with artifacts. It could be a Phyrexian. It could be a construct. It could be whatever you want it to be. And then we move into Kaldheim, that was released in 2021, so 2 years later. So now we're spanning 4 different years that Changelings were released into Magic. And I'm not counting any creatures that were released in Commander decks and stuff like that. I just feel like the ones that were released naturally in sets are the ones that need to be known about. Which Kaldheim is still kind of fresh and new to some people, so y'all might have heard of these already. Mistwalker, 2 and a blue. It's a 1/4 with flying. Oof, that's pretty big. And you can pay 1 and a blue and give it and it gets +1, -1 until end of turn, so you can even it out. Littjara Kinseekers for 3 and a blue. When it enters the battlefield, if you control 3 or more creatures that share a creature type, any type, put a +1/+1 counter on it and scry 1, and it's a 2/4. And I like the flavor text of this particular one because it's something that I feel like it just relates to the changeling thing. It says, like calls to like, and none are forgotten. That's pretty cool. And then we get into one of my boys, Orvar the All-Form for 3 and a blue. It is a legendary creature. It's a 3/3. But whenever you cast an instant sorcery, if it targets 1 or more other permanents you control, create a token that's a copy of one of those permanents. And usually the second ability doesn't matter, but in some other formats it does. So when a spell or ability in opponent control causes you to discard this card, create a token that's a copy of target permanent. Pretty cool. Guardian Gladewalker for 1 and a green. Whenever it enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. It's a 1/1. Mass Vandal for 1 and a green. Whenever it enters the battlefield, you may exile target creature card from your graveyard. If you do, exile target artifact or enchantment an opponent controls. Littjara Gladewarden. That art is kind of cool. I just realized there's some of these that I haven't seen, or it's been a while and I forgot about them. For 3 and a green, for 2, you get a 3/3, and it has the ability for 2 and a green. Tap it, exile a creature card from your graveyard, put 2 +1/+1 counters on target creature, and you can only activate the ability at sorcery speed. Realm Walker. And now I'm not going to lie, I've seen more Realm Walkers in elf decks than I have in any other tribal decks. And that could be for good reason, because elves are so cheap. Or other particular creature types are so cheap that it just makes it more effective. But for 2 and a green, you get a 2/3. And it enters the battlefield, you choose the type. You have to choose a type with this one. You may look at the top card of your library. Any time you may cast creature spells of the chosen type from the top of your library. Moretti, something like that, of the Frost for 2, a green, and 2 blue. It's a legendary snow creature, and it's a 0/0. You may have it enter the battlefield as a copy of a permanent you control, except it's legendary and snow in addition to its other types. And if it's a creature, it enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 creature counters on it and has Changeling. So it still has the Changeling ability, even though it's going to enter as another creature, which is still pretty cool in my opinion. And here we come to one of my more favorite, Bloodline Pretender. This is, to me, this is a any creature type all-star, because this is going to be your human. This will be your second champion of the parish. This will be your second champion of the perished. This can be whatever kind of put a counter on this creature because you're playing another creature of the same type of card. And I will stand to this card forever and ever, because I feel like this card is so underrated in any creature based deck that's running one type of creature. Because for 3 mana you get a 2/2. Yeah, kind of bad. It's an artifact creature. That's also kind of bad because it's an artifact. It can get blowed up. But whenever another creature of the chosen type enters the battlefield, because you choose a type when he comes in, you get a +1/+1 counter on him. And you just can't beat something like that because it just stacks. It doesn't even matter if it's cast. It just has to enter. So in my Phylath deck, I have this in there. Why? I can choose plants, choose insects. I can choose a good bit of things so I can make him as big as possible, as fast as possible. And because he's a changeling, he's still a plant. So I can give him the buff from Phylath. If he's a zombie, I can sacrifice him to Gisa to make him huge, to make a bunch of other ones. And or I can leave him on the battlefield, sack another dude, make a bunch of zombies, and he becomes huge, and next I can sacrifice him. So it gets better and better the more you realize what you got. But that is going to be all for today, guys. I'm sorry if I held you guys up. This is something that I'm really avid about because I just feel like Shapeshifters are underrated. They don't get the praise that they should, in my opinion. Because every kind of deck has a shortcoming, and unless you're running a Shapeshifter deck, this doesn't apply to y'all. Look at your Shapeshifters. Figure out if you could maybe even put some in to fill in the gaps. What's stopping you from building that one tribal deck that's not flushed out? I mean, we got 35 here. What's stopping you? Besides Morphon, maybe 34, because Morphon is multicolored. Yeah. But anyways, that's going to be it for today, guys. I really appreciate everybody that watches, that's liked the videos, that's commenting, that's subscribed. Mostly, hella love my subscribers. And that's going to be it for today. I will see you guys next time in the graveyard.